Welcome back to Beyond the Hot Flash podcast, everyone. Dr. Julia Fountain, it's so good to have you and welcome.
Well, thank you so much, Andrea. I really appreciate you inviting me on today to talk about menopause.
Yes, Dr. Fountain is a naturopathic doctor who combines the elements of nutrition, lifestyle, and hormone therapy for women in midlife and beyond. And she's a certified Menopause Society practitioner. So I think, Doctor, my first question to you is, who are you and what have you spent your life work on and why?
Yes. Well, it dates back to many, many years ago. I am a naturopathic doctor by training and by trade, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm in my 27th year of naturopathic practice. And my practice has evolved over the years. And so originally, a lot of family-based care, working with many generations from infants through to grandparents. But really, in the last 5 years, my practice has really honed in on midlife women's health. And part of that was spawned on by the COVID pandemic. And even having been in practice at that point in time for over 20 years, I had been seeing so many women come in through COVID that were in perimenopause. They were suffering and they were struggling, and we were trying to differentiate. Well, is this the stress of COVID? Is it the fact that I'm not able to exercise, go to the gym anymore? Is this just purely this would have been happening anyway because my hormones are shifting? And so it was really trying to decipher and get answers for some of these women that spawned me to get my certification with the Menopause Society. That just really allows me to practice to the full scope of my practice in being able to prescribe hormone therapy as well too for women, as well as the foundations of naturopathic care, nutrition, lifestyle, mindset, coaching, supplementation.
The listeners are going to get a lot out of today. I want to get really specific about, nutrition and also about HRT and the options on that. I love the way, I think it's on your Instagram, you say menopause isn't optional, but suffering through it is. And we have some really good stuff to unpack today. I think to start, I don't think anywhere on my podcast do I have a doctor talking about defining perimenopause and menopause. And many women are actually unsure about which stage they're in. Can we talk through this from the basics?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of confusion because there is no firm diagnostic criteria to say a woman is definitely in perimenopause or not.
Hmm.
So I think it helps if we start with defining menopause first, because that's an easier definition. And a menopause is when a woman has been without her menstrual period for a full 12 months. And the average age of menopause is 52. There is a range of normal, however, between 45 and 55 are normal ranges of menopause for women.
Hmm.
Menopause between the ages of 40 and 45 are considered to be early. And then before the age of 40, menopause is considered to be premature. And that does need to be medically treated because women do need cycling hormones at that age and stage. So that is menopause itself. Perimenopause are the symptomatic years surrounding that final menstrual period. And for the average time for perimenopause is about 7 to 10 years. And no woman ever wants to hear that.
No, not
Some
at
women,
all.
no, no, some women a little shorter, some women a little longer, but the average is about 7 to 10 years. And that starts with sometimes some symptoms to do with their period. Their period might become a little different, the flow, the frequency, or sometimes they start with the symptoms before their period even changes, and particularly amplified PMS symptoms. And so perimenopause itself is diagnosed in terms of age, cycle length, and symptomology. And as much as we would love to have lab work that would tell us, boom, you're in perimenopause or you're not, there is no definitive lab work that we can run right now that will tell us that definitive answer.
I think what is interesting for me and for the listeners, it's so cool to actually know what happens in your body. What is happening with estrogen and progesterone when we are in the perimenopause phase?
Yeah. Well, we call it the tsunami of hormones. So when,
Amen.
yes, exactly. And that literally is what is tends to happen. Perimenopause or menopause is driven by a depletion of quality follicles in the ovaries. So we're born with a certain number, millions of follicles, even at birth. And then gradually over time through a woman's life, each individual, there are follicles that are ovulated. There are follicles that get reabsorbed. So by the time we get into midlife, sometimes late 30s, early 40s, there is a bit of a depletion in quality follicles that can be ovulated. And so when there's a depletion of these quality follicles, sometimes when they are ovulated, they don't produce that same level of hormone that they used to. And so that can create some PMS symptoms. And even when there is regular ovulation and regular menstrual periods, there can still be symptoms that do crop up from that. So that is essentially what's happening from an ovulatory point of view. The first half of the menstrual cycle for a woman in her reproductive years, before menopause, before perimenopause, the first half of the cycle is very estrogen dominant. And the purpose of that, estrogen builds up that uterine lining, it gets it prepared, then we ovulate. And then if there is no conception, then that ovulated egg will tend to produce progesterone for a certain amount of time, and then that progesterone level will drop off. And so typically the second half of the cycle is very progesterone dominant. And in perimenopause, with that progesterone dropping off, that can create more amplified PMS symptoms. And that includes things like mood changes before the period. There may be some breast tenderness, sometimes even, again, some of the night sweats, overheating, sometimes extra, again, bloating, fluid retention that does happen. And the hallmark of perimenopausal changes too is changes to the period, either frequency or flow.
I think that one of the big struggles for many women is the sheer volume of information coming at them, contradictory advice on social media. Um, what is your perspective? How can women sift through all of the so-called experts to find what's truly right for them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's a good question. And I have noticed as well too, just the amount of information that's coming at women
Yeah.
on this topic.
Yeah.
And perimenopause in clinic, even 20 years ago, I was talking a lot with perimenopause about people, but it just seems like it's so much more of our public knowledge at this point, where women
Mm.
are not afraid to talk to other women about their perimenopausal symptoms or their menopausal experience. And I think it's great because I love to hear menopausal women mentoring younger women coming through the change and
Yep.
giving them tips and help too. But as you mentioned, sometimes too much information isn't always best. It can be a bit confusing and overwhelming.
Mm.
So that's really where we look. That's the primary reason why I wanted to get my Menopause Society certification. In that becomes a very good resource. It's a global organization. It's the Menopause Society. And it
Mm-hmm.
just really is a very good resource for women. Their website is menopause.org for non biased, up to date research on taking care of women in midlife. And so that includes hormone therapy, but it includes other forms of treatments as well too. And I think with menopause, we have to realize that the destination is the same, but the journey to get there for every woman is very unique. And this constellation of symptoms, mentally, physically, she might experience will be different from her neighbor or her
Yeah.
friend or her sister or her mother.
Mm.
The treatments that she chooses to pursue, if she chooses to treat symptoms, again, can be very different. And I think that you want to visit with a practitioner, a clinician, a doctor who really recognizes the power of four tiers of care when they're caring for menopausal women. And that is the power of education, understanding what's going on, and screening. So, becoming educated on your own body and what your lab results are showing and what your screening tests relate. And then the second tier of care is lifestyle habits. Good lifestyle habits make everything else that we do in peri and postmenopause work better, whether it's hormone therapy, whether it's sleep treatments, all of that.
Yeah.
A third tier of care is recognizing and supplements, and there are some
Mm-hmm.
supplements that can become pivotal as we age. And then the fourth tier of care is recognizing the benefits of hormone therapy and who's a candidate, who may not be, and being able to visit with a clinician who can look individually and meet with you individually and discuss these different tiers of care. Some women will need one or two tiers of care. Some women just need some education and their basic screening and they're running with it. That's all they need. Some women need all four tiers of care. And I think that there is a great deal of what we call FOMO out there in the menopausal world, where women are like, well, I'm not taking collagen. Do I need to take collagen? I'm not on hormones. Do I need to take hormones? I'm missing out on something. And so there's not one solution, there's not one path. We really do have to sort through it. And we have to take into consideration the bandwidth of women too. I mean, not all women can do everything all at once. They can't manage their diet and their exercise and their supplements, MBA and everything else all at the same time. So sometimes it's a matter of phasing in some of these things, not just expecting to do everything all at once.
And it's hard. I mean, it can
Mm-hmm.
become expensive taking
Mm-hmm.
five different supplements. And do you really need all of them? I love the part about finding somebody that can take care holistically in terms of your body, your symptoms, and where you're at, and that you can entrust that whole story to somebody like yourself, which is really, really special. I do the podcast where we talk about sometimes people are not being heard or felt supported by their current doctor or whatever it is with regards to menopause and the symptoms that they're having. And so imagine walking into a room with somebody that gets where you're at. I would love to hear your view on nutrition. Can we manage symptoms with food? And are there specific foods or food groups that women in midlife should focus on incorporating or perhaps even avoiding?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, nutrition is an example where there's a lot of confusion out there, and
Yeah.
particularly as far as weight management goes, that is another big issue that we run into, and nutrition can be part of the piece of the puzzle there too. So with nutrition, we focus on three things with nutrition: food quality, food quantity, and then if we need to, food timing and meal timing. We want a nutritional approach that's built for the ages, that is going to withstand the test of time. Often we will realize that what we used to do maybe to manage weight or to manage energy or to manage diet just isn't working the same. It's not providing the same return on investment. So we need to shift
Yeah.
things up.
Yeah.
Absolutely, protein becomes crucial as we age to maintain and particularly if we're trying to build muscle. Fiber is very important from a heart health point of view, reducing LDL cholesterol, keeping those in check, even helping with satiety and bowel health, gut health too. I usually start with a foundation of a Mediterranean style of eating. It does tend to be maintainable long term. It does tend to be quite heart healthy. We look at dietary intake of calcium, and we look at not just dairy sources but other sources as well. So yeah, I think that just to say that there's one solution nutritionally for women, that's not true. I like to really delve into what a plan A for nutrition looks like for a woman, what her plan B is, and what her plan C is. Because we all have this idea and maybe even know what we need to be eating to feel our best and to look our best, but we can't always manage it. So when we can't manage it, how do we avoid being on the wagon, off the wagon? We need a plan B. And sometimes even plan B is too hard to manage. And so we need a plan C. And again, the idea being that we're in this for the long haul. We're not just looking for some kind of quick fix that might be perhaps quite restrictive, just not maintainable long term. And I think a big part of the nutrition piece too is that I think nutrition therapy it makes everything else work better. So when a woman has a very good quality and in the right portions, it makes the hormone therapy work better. So they need less dose of hormone therapy. Don't need as many supplements. So it simplifies her supplement routine. It helps with her mood. So when nutrition is there, everything else works better. But sometimes it's hard to start with nutrition with patients, particularly if they're not sleeping, they're feeling overwhelmed, they're doing everything for everybody else and not saving enough time for themselves or enough energy for themselves at the end of the day. And they're feeling very frustrated and confused, and they're in analysis paralysis. So sometimes we have to get women feeling better first before we really delve into some of the very crucial and very important, and I don't want that to be minimized, important
Mm.
aspects of lifestyle. But if it was easy, they would already be doing it. But there's something else that may be holding them back.
Yeah. Very key. Thank you so much for that. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk a little bit about your practice involves HRT, hormone replacement therapy, or let's just call it hormone therapy. So, for women who are considering their options, I was thinking about this the other day. There are key differences between our conventional HRT and what other types of therapy as a naturopathic doctor would you recommend? Somebody says, I want to go the natural route. What does that
Yep.
look like?
Yeah. Well, and there's different forms of hormone therapy in perimenopause and into menopause. And some of those are within a naturopath's scope of practice. And it depends because the scope of practice for a naturopathic doctor is very different province to province and state to
Hmm.
state. So what they're able to prescribe is going to be different. But again, a lot of the hormone therapy that we're using or that women are receiving, one can be the hormone secreting IUD. That is a hormone treatment. There can be the oral contraceptive pill. For some women, that is hormonally how they will manage some symptoms, particularly difficult periods. Sometimes we'll respond to that. And then there's what we now know as menopause hormone therapy, which is a different branch, but again, it has its role in helping with some of the symptoms of peri and postmenopause. And so when we are working with women, and even as a naturopathic doctor, sometimes the best treatment for a woman is not even what I can prescribe, but just having me to be able to understand what her situation is, that I may have to refer her back to her family doctor for a treatment that is going to be more effective than the treatments I can provide or the hormone therapies that are within my scope of practice. So I don't have a bias to say you have to use this as much as to say, let's see what the options are. And if you need more information on one of these other options that may be more effective than what I can offer, I think that you should talk to your family doctor, your gynecologist about that. And that's collaborative care. And we're seeing more and more of that in the peri and postmenopausal space here where
Yeah.
we're at. And I do
Hmm.
think it is moving towards that because we don't want to treat menopause as a disease. And so we're really recognizing that it's not always a medical situation. It doesn't always have to be treated as a medical event. And so there is very good value in working with lifestyle as well too.
There are so many different options available, and I think
Yes,
that's why we do this collaboration, because it's so important to find out what works for you, and what is best for you, because they're all slightly different and have different dosages, etc. Am I correct?
exactly. Absolutely.
Okay.
And different side effect profiles too. And
Also,
so, yeah,
yes.
and by and large, when we're speaking of menopause hormone therapy, at this point in time, the preferred form in most cases of estrogen therapy is the transdermal estrogen, which is a patch usually or a gel applied on the skin. And that is whether you see your gynecologist, whether your naturopathic doctor prescribes, or whether your family doctor prescribes. By and large, transdermal estradiol is the preferred form of estrogen therapy into menopause and beyond. And part of that is because there's a lower risk associated of blood clots with transdermal estrogen versus a pill form of estrogen. And I think the importance too is recognizing the dose difference. So when a woman is on the oral contraceptive pill, she's getting 4 to 10 times higher dose of hormones than a woman, say, that is getting standard menopausal hormone therapy. And the reason for that is because the birth control pill works by suppressing ovulation and therefore is birth control. And you need high doses of hormone for that. Whereas menopausal hormone therapy is just meant to help with some of the symptoms. And so we don't need as much hormone for that. And so again, heading into a woman, say mid 50s, she won't be put on a birth control pill, but if she needs hormonal help, that would be the menopausal hormone therapy that comes into play.
That clears
Yeah.
that up. I actually didn't know
Mhm.
that about the different dosages. So that's super interesting. Great. Good. So I have a question for you. It's a burning question. People ask me, my daughters ask me, my friends ask me, and every now and then I'm like, yeah, I didn't ask my doctor this. Let's talk supplements. We are bombarded with D3, magnesium, creatine, collagen. Oh my goodness, there are so many things
Yes.
we need to take. And it's already difficult with foggy brain to remember when and which and how. So, if you could tell us, please, Dr. Fountain, for women in midlife, if we need to take supplements, give us your top three and why.
Yeah. Well, and that's a good question because a lot of women come in with literally bags full of supplements and which ones should I take, right? And I've been reading about
I'm
all of these.
sure.
They all sound so good. I'm just going to take them all. And so there is such a thing as, you got to keep to a budget probably, and then also just pill fatigue. You want if you're taking supplements, you want to take the best indicated ones and know why you're taking them, what they're doing. If you're getting, and again, the duration of you may not have to be on some supplements long term.
Hmm.
But again, so that's one thing is we just want to make sure that if you are only able to take three things, that it's going to be the most important three things. So vitamin D is usually in there, and vitamin D we always test blood levels because I that's the only way I can reliably know whether a woman's diet or her current supplementation is adequate or not. And so we use that as a baseline, and then we will tend to check twice a year for a couple of years. So we get that seasonal variability on vitamin D. And once we have that figured out, then we just check that annually, particularly if bone density is an issue or they've been diagnosed with early bone loss or certainly osteoporosis. We check that regularly. And then the other one I would say is a very common one we start women on is magnesium. And magnesium is a very calming effect on the nerves. It can help with sleep, some of the premenstrual nerve, what we call the short fuse. Magnesium helps to grow a longer fuse, so it can help with that. Magnesium is very commonly deficient in the diet too. The main source of magnesium is green leafy vegetables. And we need the equivalent of around 3 cups of steamed spinach every day to be able to get adequate magnesium. And
Sure.
we're just not, most of us are not doing that.
No.
So getting a bit of additional magnesium in a supplement form, usually before bed, helps with just kind of relaxing things for women. For some women, makes all the difference for sleep. And then the third one's a little bit of a toss up. I will tell you the two common ones that we do end up supplementing often with. Iron is a very common deficiency, but I don't supplement iron unless we have blood levels that tell us that she needs iron because it can have some side effects of constipation and nausea. So we don't want a woman to be experiencing that if she
No.
doesn't need
Those are the
it.
worst two things ever.
Yeah, exactly. So,
No.
but low
Okay.
iron, the symptoms of low iron or anemia actually resemble the same symptoms of perimenopause. There's a lot of overlap there. And so we want to rule that out, get the iron levels up. We need iron to make dopamine. And so there will be issues with mood, there'll be issues with motivation, sleep, and as well with that.
If you're listening to this and you haven't had your blood work done in a while, check your iron levels as well. Really make sure to check those. That is super interesting. Thank you for that.
So the primary cause of hair loss in women is low iron and low iron stores. So you don't even have to be anemic. But if your iron
Wow.
stores are low,
Hello.
then there can be some hair loss. Restless leg syndrome associated with low iron. So there's a lot of
Wow.
things that can be cropping up. We think, oh, this is perimenopause, I'm losing my hair, but maybe it's fixable with just a little more iron.
That's why I love doing blood work. It's so great. It tells you everything. It's you can be the perfect investigator and have this beautiful story in front of you and you can target for your body what you need. That's great.
That's right.
Is there
That's
anything
right.
else?
Yeah.
You said it
B,
was a toss up.
B12. Iron and B12 are very common deficiencies in health conscious women, particularly when they're still having periods and particularly if they're having heavy or frequent periods. And the reason for that, well, B12 and iron, they're found in primarily animal foods. So if a woman is trying to cut down a little bit on some meats and more plant-based sources of protein, there may be less iron in B12. B12, and they're also in fortified foods. They're in enriched flour products. And again, more health conscious women are not eating a lot of refined stuff. They're eating more the whole grain or the less processed. So B12
Yes.
deficiency is quite common as well, and we do test for that. And if the levels are low, we'll do some B12 shots or we'll do some B12 supplementation. So
Mm.
that third supplement again, it's a
Mm.
little bit of a toss up. Some women
Yeah.
might need one of those, some women need both, some women don't, in which case maybe
Yeah.
it's just D and magnesium to start. Um,
Yes.
yeah, and then yeah, speaking of creatine and you're speaking of collagen, those are all ones that not every woman probably needs to be on those. There can be benefit to some women using them, particularly creatine if your strength training can be very beneficial. But I like to have a good talk with a woman and understand what her capacity is for supplements because some women are, again, we don't want them to get pill fatigue and get
Yeah.
overwhelmed and then stop taking everything because I'm telling them to put 3 powders in their smoothie and drink this at noon and then they end up not taking their iron and they end up not taking the B12 or the vitamin D, which are really the crucial ones.
Right.
So we want to
Yeah,
kind of
makes sense.
prioritize. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Can we talk about the times to take these? I mean, I take D3, I take magnesium, and I'm taking creatine, but I
Hmm.
tend to take all of those when I've had a good meal. Also because I take B6, B12, and I find the B vitamin can make me feel nauseous if I go and teach yoga and I have it really early in the morning and I don't have like enough protein in my stomach. So I feel like I take it in the morning. Are there any other suggestions? Except magnesium, I
Yeah.
actually take at night.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And iron again is another one some women get very confused over because some instructions say with food, without food, and then
Okay.
AM, PM. But Ultimately, what we want to do is take a vitamin at a point in time in the day where it's going to provide some of the most benefit for us. So B vitamins, they have some metabolic benefits. So we kind of want B vitamins in the morning, okay,
Mm,
to derive the
okay.
benefit from an energetic and metabolic point of view. Vitamin D3, it's as long as it's taken with some amount of food or the vitamin D capsule has some oil in it, it'll be absorbed whether it's morning or night, and that one won't matter. Creatine, again, we have some latitude on when you take creatine. It doesn't have to be surrounding a workout or anything. It's just at some point in the day, get it in. So
Yeah.
again, trying to really simplify the supplement routine. Magnesium, you're going to get the most benefit from that, usually around bedtime if you're using it for sleep. Um, and then again, B12 would be typically in the morning, so you derive the metabolic benefits from it there. Creatine,
Perfect.
omega 3s, yeah, omega 3s could be taken any time of day. Yeah.
Excellent.
Mm.
Um, I think for a lot of people, they're often worried. It's because you're taking these supplements and I'm taking my hormones at night. So I'm doing my HRT regime. I'm rubbing the gels. I'm doing the testosterone. I'm doing all of the stuff. And I'm taking my progesterone at night. And will that all be effective with what I'm doing, taking these supplements at the same time?
Yeah, and that's the nice part about transdermal estrogen in particular is it bypasses the liver when you're rubbing it on the skin, and so there's less likely chance of side effects. And even then, as far as drug interactions and supplement interactions with hormone therapy, very few, if any, that we need to worry about in the general population that way.
Okay,
So yeah,
wonderful.
yeah. And to be
Well,
honest, your estrogen at night, your progesterone at night, and your magnesium at night, and that's like a sleep trio, just like that.
oh,
Yeah,
it's amazing. I've got a
yeah.
friend who recently started on progesterone and she said it's been like she's been on it 5 days. This woman does not sleep. She said she sleeps. It's about getting to sleep. She sleeps so well. So I'm very excited about that. And if you're listening to this today, I mean, you really struggle with your sleep, really go and do some research. And I think that's the big thing. Get educated about your body and about all the things we're talking about today. Dr. Fountain, there's another thing. There's a lot of confusion around magnesium because there are many types. I take magnesium bisglycinate because I've heard that that's what helps me with sleep. But there's magnesium thionate, citrate. I mean, there are so many. Help us understand this.
Yeah, I think at last count there were 15 forms of magnesium available.
Really?
Yeah. So
Really?
yeah.
No.
So yeah, I tried to differentiate all of those, right? So the primary ones that we tend to see in supplementation around menopause is the magnesium bisglycinate, the magnesium threonate, and magnesium citrate. Those are the top three. There are others too, but those are the most common. So the magnesium bisglycinate is recommended usually for sleep because the glycine component of the glycinate also helps with sleep. So you've almost got magnesium plus glycine in the same capsule, and that has a nice benefit. The magnesium threonate it crosses the blood-brain barrier, and so if we just find magnesium bisglycinate isn't helping like we would expect it to help with sleep or with mood, then we may switch a woman to magnesium threonate to see if she gets a better response. And then magnesium citrate, it's a more laxative form of magnesium. So magnesium relaxes everything in the body, including the bowels. There are some forms of magnesium that will sit around in the bowels a little bit longer, and that creates an osmotic draw of water, which can make things a bit looser, which in some cases is
Okay.
a nice side benefit for women that tend to be a bit constipated. But the magnesium citrate, still very good for sleep, can be very good for mood, but not so great for women that maybe have IBS and a little bit loose
Yeah.
stool already. That could trigger some of that. The glycinate form and the threonate form are less laxative forms.
Great. You see,
Yeah.
and that's why it's important. We need to, instead of walking into a store and self-medicating, really do the research. And then you wonder why you got diarrhea for days. It's because
Hmm.
you need to change up your magnesium. So that's very, very important. Thanks for clearing that up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, there are a lot of people that listen to this podcast and that follow me on Instagram. I'm a yoga teacher. I do my strength training as well. And so there's a lot of noise about electrolytes. And one of my members was like, can we talk about electrolytes? Please, can you ask a doctor? We want to hear about it. Can we just have salt in water and go? Or is this a marketing thing? Should we be taking electrolytes? Is it necessary?
Well, yeah, and again, it's something that we do consider for some women, particularly in the hot summer months, and particularly outside a lot and sweating. So electrolytes, we need them to create energy within the cell. So everything that passes in and out of a cell is determined by an electrical charge, and that electrical charge is supplied by the electrolytes. And so by that we mean sodium and chloride, which what we know is table salt, sodium chloride. But the other electrolytes are magnesium, potassium, phosphorus, and bicarbonate. And so those are the things that float around in the bloodstream. They help things get in and out of the cell. And ultimately, they do have an important function with muscle contraction, including muscle contraction of the heart, of your calves, of your thighs, all of the muscles in the body. And they also have an important function in getting energy in and out of the cell too. So from an energetic point of view. Um,
Mm,
we have all of those nutrients in foods essentially in some way, shape, or form. So
yeah.
again, a good quality diet with fruits and vegetables and a lot of plant-based foods will go a long way in being able to provide a very electrolyte dense diet.
Mm,
Sometimes we have to talk to people about their salt intake. So some women have very low intake and very low blood pressure. And some
mm,
women, the opposite, higher salt intake, sometimes higher blood pressure. So that's a very individual conversation. Not every woman will have high blood pressure as a result of sodium, but
mm-hmm.
some do.
Yeah.
But when we sweat out sodium. And so we have to take that into
Yeah.
consideration.
Yeah.
The electrolytes can be used as part of a rehydration type of situation when you've been sweating a
Mm,
lot and when you're working out
yeah.
hard, or again, if it's been really hot, just to replace
Yeah.
some of those. But it doesn't have to be a fancy, electrolyte drink necessarily. Even something like V8 juice. Like if you know V8
Wow.
juice,
Yes, I've
that
seen it.
that is full of electrolytes. Or a
Wow.
homemade tomato soup or gazpacho.
Wow.
I mean, those are loaded with electrolytes, particularly if there's a little bit of salt in there. So it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be
Amazing.
something that's artificial. Um,
Yeah.
and even as far as the prepared electrolyte drinks go, there are some that are better than others in terms of some do have a lot of sugar and glucose added in there. So that is
Yeah.
for people that absolutely are exercising and
Yes.
need that quick energy. But there
Yeah.
are other electrolyte powders that do not have sugars added as part of that.
Yeah.
And some people just like adding a little bit to their water to give it a bit of flavor.
It's amazing how much you lose and how your body can feel when you actually take electrolytes. So, yeah, you're right. I think it's having that conversation, and if it's something that you do need, it's always about trying to just be kind to our bodies. It's food that we need to keep giving to our bodies.
Yeah.
What are you seeing a lot of in your practice? Is there anything that kind of glaringly obvious sort of stares you in the face and you're like, wow, this is everyday woman coming in with this? Is there something that pops up for you?
Well, a common theme that women will often mention is this, I just don't feel like myself anymore. I just
Mm,
don't feel like myself. And so when we probe into what that means, it usually has to do with their mood just isn't the same. They may feel more down more often or more anxious or anxiety that comes out of the blue. We see absolutely differences in sleep. So that's a common concern that women will experience either problems getting to sleep, but more often actually it's problems staying asleep or waking in the night, that 3 a.m. witching hour,
yes.
where every thought
Yes.
is a doomsday thought, all that negative thinking that can happen in the middle of the night. And then the other thing where women just don't feel the same is just their how their body is changing. So changing shape, changing size, sometimes weight gain, sometimes increase in abdominal weight, just a redistribution of body weight. And they're just say, I don't recognize myself anymore. This
Yeah.
is so different, and what I used to do is not working the same. So I need a new path forward that recognizes that there needs to be some changes. And so those are the biggies. There's mood, there's sleep, and there's weight that come up
Yeah. And
often.
I think so many people will resonate with what you've just said. And it's
Mm-hmm.
sad. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's just it's tough. When you're not feeling yourself, it's just the most awful thing. And I think for the listeners to know that there is hope out there, and that's what's exciting. You do not have to suffer through this. Dr. Fountain, thank you so much for your time. and just for your insight and giving us clarity on supplementation, making us aware that there are actually amazing remedies out there, solutions, and hope and help. Hallelujah. So
Yeah.
thank you very much for today.
Thank you so much, Andrea.
Thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you so much for all your amazing support. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Click the little notification bell, please. Really appreciate your support, and I look forward to the next podcast.